Hi there, my name's Cassandra and I'm a mother of two, and I'm here to talk to you today about the 5 W's of homeschooling: who, what, where, when, and why. I'm the creator of the vlog Life in Yellowknife on YouTube, and I really enjoy talking about homeschooling and living up here in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Not a lot is known about the homeschooling community here, I feel like, and so I'm happy to share a little bit of that with you, as well as some good advice for beginners and sort of a base for where to start with this whole homeschooling thing, because there's so much to know. So the first thing we're going to talk about is me. Sorry, just for a little bit. I'm a mother of two, like I said, and my children are 5 and 3. But before you click off, I know that they are young, but let me tell you, I have had a passion for homeschooling since I was a teenager. In fact, I wrote an essay on unschooling and deschooling in grade 10, which I still have, which is not that good. But I had a passion for it and I loved researching it. I also attended an unschooling community for a year where I got to interact with a whole bunch of different homeschooling families and ages. And I actually got to live with a family that practiced unschooling with their twin girls for about a year as well. So I saw it in action. I also am obsessed with so many homeschooling YouTubers like Our Place to Nest, Our Tribe of Many, Pepper and Pine, all sorts of varieties of homeschooling, large family, small family. I watch so many of those, and so I've had time to look at the curriculum that they use and see their homeschooling vlogs to form my own practices of homeschooling. So I want to share a little bit about that with you because this is something that I love to talk about, and so I hope you'll stick around. But let me tell you first about my real credentials, because I know those are the ones you're eager to hear about, like my bachelor's degree and where I went to teachers college and how many years I taught before I dropped out and homeschooled my children. Because that's a huge misconception, right? That we need those things as homeschooling parents. But I'll tell you that I have none of those things. I have a college degree in massage therapy. That's it. But I have a love for my children and I have endless patience. No, I'm just kidding. I won't start lying to you again. But I do have a love of my children, and I have always wanted to keep them at home with me, build those relationships, and get to experience the joys of homeschooling. You know, on my forums here, you do have to register with a school here, and every province is different. So if you are new to homeschooling, I recommend the first thing you do is seek out what you need to do by law for your province. Here you need to register your child with a school. You pick a school board, you pick a school, and you fill out one form. On that form, it has things like listing your qualifications and talking about reasons why you want to homeschool, etc., etc. I looked at the form and I was a little bit angry, I'm not going to lie to you, because I thought this is going to possibly deter some people. They think, oh, do I need some qualifications? Oh, do I need my reasons to be good enough? In fact, on the Facebook page I'm a part of for my community up here, someone did ask, has the form ever been rejected? I thought, yeah, I mean, they're making it seem so intimidating when you don't need any of those things. Another huge, huge misconception that and people actually have said to me is that if you want to homeschool, you need to be a mom with endless patience. You need to have an open schedule, not work at all, just be totally free to devote every hour to your child. And that you need to have quite a bit of money to afford all the curriculum and supplies that you're going to need. And those things, I would say, are also false. You do not need any of these things. All of these things, every desire that you may have to be more patient and to be a better person, that can all come to you through time and experience and practice. You don't need to just be perfect right away in order to homeschool. I have noticed even in just a few years, I've become much more patient than when I started homeschooling. So it's funny when you meet someone on the street and they say, oh yeah, wow, you must be so patient. I could never do that. I could never have my kids around all the time. And you just kind of laugh. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want someone around all the time either, but you schedule breaks and you do self-care. So, who do you need to be to homeschool? Our first W, who? I think you need to have love. I think you need to be humble. You need to be willing to learn and accept the fact that you are not perfect and you will not be a perfect teacher, just as you are not a perfect parent. And I think you need to have a drive to become better. The part I feel like is most important are the two things, the love, but also the desire to learn and grow and become better. So what is there to learn? We're going to talk about two whats today. They are what curriculum you should use and what style of homeschooling will work for you and your family. So I know that there can be total topics devoted to this in this conference, and there may be, but for the purpose of my talk today, I am just going to briefly go over some styles and some places that you can find curriculum and what kind of curriculum you may want to use. So the first style that we're going to talk about is traditional, which is just bringing the school system into your home. That is, I feel like, a common thing that people do when their kids have been in school or when they first start researching homeschooling. They think that's what homeschooling is, just bringing that Canadian curriculum and bringing it home into your home. But that is not the only way to homeschool. There are, in fact, many different styles. So the second one is called Waldorf, and it focuses on imagination and creativity, and it follows a theory for child development. So there's 3 stages of child development that it follows, or 3 stages of Waldorf schooling, and they each last approximately 7 years. So they do lots of natural toys and crafting with natural and beautiful art supplies, like really high quality stuff. They also do lots of learning through play in the early stages of homeschooling with Waldorf. The third style that I want to talk about is called Charlotte Mason. And this uses living books rather than textbooks. And they use a lot of narration instead of worksheets. And they use a broad education. So I read that it's sort of like spreading a feast before the child and having them, take in what they want to and what they need. Fourth one is classical education. So this is a pattern for learning, again, involving 3 stages. The first stage is absorbing facts and laying foundations. That's called the grammar stage. Then it's like thinking through arguments, and that's called the logic stage. And then the last thing is then they learn to express themselves in the last stage, and that's the rhetoric stage. So the 5th one is unit studies. This is taking a theme or a topic and revolving all of your subjects around the theme or topic. So for example, if your topic was butterflies, for math, you could calculate the wingspan of a monarch butterfly. For geography, mark on a map some of the paths of the monarch's migration. You could get a butterfly kit for science and watch the caterpillars turn into butterflies. You could read books on butterflies for literature, make a spelling list of the different parts of the butterfly. You could make a butterfly habitat for art. And you could possibly even look into like butterfly mythology or symbolism in places throughout the world where butterflies are significant. The 6th one is called unschooling. And this is, I feel like, commonly misunderstood. It is when you go by your child's interests. So you have no set curriculum, but you just follow their lead. So if they are interested in race cars, for example, then you research this with the child, provide them resources, provide them what they need until they are satisfied. And then you move on. So it's totally led by the child. The 7th thing is called eclectic. And this is just mixing up the different styles and really tailoring it to your family. We practice eclectic homeschooling in my home. There are many other things that I won't get into, like nature schooling, Montessori, road schooling, de-schooling, all sorts of different types of schooling. So these things, although you do not need to have a style of homeschooling, it can be helpful to figure out the style of homeschooling for you so that you can choose a curriculum that will be appropriate. So there are some curriculums that go with some styles. For example, if you choose the classical route, then there is a curriculum called 5 in a Row, which provides activities that are revolving around classic literature. And then maybe you can move into the classical education or classical conversations, curriculum. Maybe for Charlotte Mason, you may want to choose master books, which provide living books. Or if you're following a traditional curriculum, you could go with Good and the Beautiful. Maybe you don't care about your style so much, but you just want a curriculum revolving around literature. So maybe you'll go with Sonlight. There are so many different curriculums, and I definitely suggest getting some kind of support system that can help you and give you experiences on what they've used. So for me, it was really helpful to watch a lot of YouTube videos with families that have practiced all sorts of different ones. Pepper and Pine is Waldorf. Our Tribe of Many does Abeka and Sonlight. Our Place to Nest does a whole bunch of different things, teaching textbooks, things online. So it's helpful to watch a variety of people, or someone that uses a variety of things. Also, if there's a co-op around you, I suggest seeing if they can do maybe like a little open house where you can look at some of the curriculum that they have used and talk about it with them. So those are some important things to remember. And an important thing to remember about curriculum is that you can always change it. You can always change it if it's not working for your child. Also, when you do choose something, you are the parent. So you are able to really tailor everything to your child. For example, my daughter, Alice, was just using a workbook that came with a curriculum that I purchased, and it was very repetitive. And so I found when I noticed she mastered some subjects and when those activities came up in the book, I would just say, skip it, which is totally against my nature. I love to finish things. But I could tell when she was done with it too, like she was really done with it. And so you don't need to make sure you're doing exactly what's in the book and finish it and do everything perfectly. You can do whatever works for your family, and just remember that you are in control of it, and trust your gut. Your gut is going to help you just navigate this with your child. More things to consider when you're considering curriculum are things like if it's open and go, meaning you can literally just open the book and teach, or if you are okay doing some prep work. We do a mix of things. I have some things that are open and go, like our math is pretty open and go. And I have some things that take preparation, like our religious studies take a bit of preparation and time. Also, you may want to consider how much parental involvement you want to do. Maybe you have multiple children and you're worried that you can't, sit down with each child for a certain amount of time and really work through things with them. So you may want to get some subjects that are pretty independent for them, maybe some involving parent involvement, or maybe you want to do that whole unit studies thing. For each subject, you can, do a different activity for each level, but still be learning together so that they're all in one place. Some wheres I want to discuss before we talk about where you can get curriculum are, where can you homeschool? I'm going to show you some pictures here of some places that we have done our homeschooling. You do not need a desk or homeschool room. You can truly homeschool anywhere. We homeschool primarily in our kitchen, but we sometimes are on the floor, sometimes we're in our beds, sometimes we're outside. It does not matter. Learning can be done anywhere. Let's move on to where can you find curriculum? I actually did a poll on one of the Facebook groups I'm a part of called Christian Canadian Homeschoolers, and I asked them where the best place to get curriculum is, because I've noticed that shipping rates can be really high, especially where I am, to ship it from the States, because a lot of times it comes from the States. They gave me some really great suggestions. I asked them to consider things like the cost of the curriculum, the shipping rates, and the delivery times. The top answers, I wrote 6 down for you, were thelearninghouse.ca, Christian books, although personally I find their shipping to be expensive and they do have a wide selection. Third is Canadian Home Education Resources, which I had never heard of. Fourth was mathcanada.ca. That's another thing about math, if you think about it. If you're getting a math curriculum from America and you are just starting out and you're teaching your child about money, then it's not going to be Canadian money. So it was pretty cool that they had this mathcanada.ca website where they actually have programs like MathUC. You can get the Canadian version of that program. The fifth was Heritage Resources, and the sixth was classicaleducationbooks.ca. Let's talk about when. First, you need to figure out your yearly schedule. Are you going to homeschool year round? Are you going to follow the school system, September to June, or are you going to do your own thing? Some people I've heard do 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and they use the 2 weeks to prepare for the next 6 weeks, so they only have to plan 6 weeks at a time. And I actually kind of liked that if I was that organized. I'm not, but I like the idea of trying something for 6 weeks and giving it a really good shot and just getting through it for 6 weeks just to see, because sometimes you start something and it takes a little while to get into it. So give it the full 6 weeks and then reevaluate. Then you have to figure out your weekly schedule. How many days are you going to homeschool in a week? Some people do 4 days, some people do 6 days. Then you have to figure out your daily schedule, which is probably the hardest part. So what subjects are you going to do each day would be one thing to consider. Some people take like your core subjects like math and English. They do those every day, and then they do a loop system for the other subjects like geography, history, and they'll loop them so that they go from history to geography and they just get through what they can get through in a day, and then the next day they start where the loop ends and then they keep going. As opposed, some people schedule geography for Mondays, history for Tuesdays, whatever it might be. The next thing is figure out your routines. So for example, you could do a morning basket, which Pam Barnhill is a great resource for that, where you do the things that are sometimes forgotten in your homeschool or that kind of come last that you don't normally get to, like art and music studies. So you can do those right in the morning so that, your day starts off with beauty and goodness. One thing we do is we do our binders in the morning. We call them our morning binders. So we get scripture study, personal prayer, chores, and cleaning up our toys from the day before, all done in the morning before we start school. You can figure out what routines work for you, but having routines is pretty helpful to make sure that you can get things done. Another thing that's possible to do for a daily schedule is a block schedule. Jordan Page is where I heard about this block scheduling system, and it's where you take chunks of time, and one chunk of time, say from 8 to 10, is dedicated to only certain things, and you only focus on those certain things during that chunk of time. Now we're on to the last thing, which is our why. Why are you homeschooling? And I feel like this is so important to figure out for yourself so that you can go back to it when you are having hard days. In fact, if you're just starting out homeschooling, I recommend that you sit down and you figure out and you write down or you record or you whatever your whys of homeschooling. I'm going to share with you some of my important whys, and hopefully that will inspire something in you and help you get the ball rolling with this. So the first thing that is important to me are that I can tailor the education to my child. So I can eliminate things that are taught in the curriculum in schools, or I can add to them. Napoleon Hill said, "The most important education prepares us for the practical affairs of life." And I think a lot of the things that are being taught in schools that are practical are missing, like cooking, learning how to keep a budget, keeping a home. Religion is a huge one that's missing. For us, that was so important to be able to bring things that we're teaching in our homeschool and bring them back to how they relate to God's plan. And some things that they teach are not even necessary. And so for me, I take them away. It's being able to completely tailor the education to your child and what you feel is important for your family. The second thing is having close relationships with your family. You're spending time together, you're learning together, you're growing together, as opposed to being separated in school because of their ages. Which leads me to my next one, which is that our children that are homeschooled are often labeled as not being socialized, or people worry that their children are not going to be socialized. But let me tell you a strange thing that I see. I see when my child, when they interact with other homeschooling families, playing with all ages and knowing how to interact with them. It just doesn't matter. They just play together. But when I see a child from school, often I see they don't even know how to play with other ages. Often they tease younger kids or they're intimidated by older kids, and that's not being socialized. They don't even know how to interact with adults, right? One of the beautiful things about homeschooling is that you're able to help your child navigate those social relationships. You're able to observe them and then help them with these relationships. For example, one day my daughter and I are at the library. There's this girl. She wants to play with my daughter. But kids are oblivious sometimes. My daughter is oblivious in this moment. She has no idea. In fact, she keeps running by the girl. She has no clue. And the girl keeps kind of coming around. And I was able to pull my daughter aside and talk to her and say, "Hey, Alice, I think that girl wants to play with you." And she's like, "Oh, I'm nervous about that," which is totally a normal reaction a kid has and probably would have in the middle of the playground at school, except that there's no one there to help them figure out how to navigate that. So I was able to talk to her about why she was nervous, give her some suggestions on things she could say to start a conversation or how to ask her to play. And they ended up having a great time together. She followed my advice, went and asked the girl to play, and they had a great time together. And they probably wouldn't have even played had I not witnessed what was going on and was able to help her. You know what I mean? These things are important, especially for young kids. They have no idea how to build these relationships or how to interact socially. So in my opinion, socialization is not a problem for homeschooling children. The fourth thing is that you are able to be flexible. You're able to school when you want, not school when you want, take vacation when you want. The fifth thing is that you don't have to miss out on those joys of learning. That is one of the coolest things to me, is to watch my child learn something and watch them be so proud of themselves. And I mean, I'm like overly excited about everything, but each thing that I notice my child learning that we've been working hard on, or just that they pick up, like I cry half the time. I'm so happy to see those things. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to send them away and have those joys be experienced by a teacher when they could be experienced by me. The last thing is that, yeah, that's the last thing. That's the last why, but there are many whys for me. and I'm sure there are many for you. So I highly recommend you write them down, like I said, and put them away and pull them out when you're in those deep waters, when you're doubting, when you're having a hard time, wondering if you chose the right thing in homeschooling. I hope that I was able to introduce you to a lot of things today, some things to think about, and a place to get started. If you're interested in learning more from me or wanting to see how my family homeschools, please feel free to check out my channel. It's called Life in Yellowknife on YouTube. I talk about homeschooling. I talk about living in the North. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Life in Yellowknife. I think I'm on Twitter, Life in Yellowknife, but I'm not good on Twitter. I wouldn't follow me there. So Instagram and YouTube would be the places to catch me. Hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. I really hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the conference. I've been watching this for years. I'm a huge fan, and it's really helped me in my homeschooling journey, and I hope it helps you too.